I'm Chief Exec of Inverclyde Community Development Trust, and we're the organisation that have purchased the Dutch Gable for Inverclyde's future. The programme today at the Dutch Gable is the launch of the new Kith Kin book, which has been put together with our identity programme funded through the Heritage Lottery, but also with a whole range of volunteers from all over Inverclyde who have brought together their stories. The stories are now recorded in the book Kith Kin, but also on our new website as well. Today is really the launch of a series of events this week in Inverclyde, but also from our point of view it's really the launching of the next 5 or 6 years of programmes here at the Dutch Gable, which will celebrate the heritage and history of Inverclyde.
Identities Project Manager. 2 years ago we put in a funding bid for Heritage Lottery and we got £150,000. Part of the project was to work in partnership with James Watt College so that people would receive SPQ using an informal model education. Some of the other features of the project were that we done a graphic novel, that we worked in 13 local schools and raised awareness of heritage and history. The young people had 4 weeks to research a piece of history about Inverclyde, and then illustrators and graphic designers came in and drew up their pages, and then it culminated in a full book called The Archivist's Treasure. We've also done lots of film and documentary work with other schools. And a documentary on Larkfield, the history of Larkfield. We've done 2 animations, one on the shipyards, one on the Comet, PS Comet from Port Glasgow. We've done the identity film, which runs for half an hour, which is like a sort of timelined history of how Inverclyde came about. The volunteer group who came together 2 years ago as well, they brought together and they trace their roots, trace their ancestors, their genealogy, and some of the stories that they found just following the paths they put together into stories which made up the book Kith Kin. So that's why we're here today. They also put together a web. It's called Identity Inverclyde, www.identityinverclyde.co.uk, and it's got lots of stories on it that we used as a sort of repository. So we gathered people's stories and we put them on here so that people can go and listen to how the ancestors got here and the story of immigration to Inverclyde and why they came here and why people settled here. So that's what we were launching today, was the Kith Kin book and the website. And through the rest of the week we've got Guerra Guerra, which is a play on the Italian community, and that'll be at the Beacon, and it was written by a group of young people from St Columba's, working with Dan McCann and Donald Perry, and the whole Guerra Guerra means war, it's Italian for war, and that'll be taking part in the Beacon. But Identity is actually finishing. It was set up 2 years ago and the funding has come to an end, so it finishes now. So over the next few months it'll go to evaluation, but everything, all the resources that come out of the project will be available for exhibition and on the website if people want to go in there and see it.
My story is about my father and his uncle who emigrated to Port Glasgow from America. Now that may seem strange, but in fact what had happened was that, I'm trying to find it, there it is there. What happened was my grandmother had emigrated to the United States, married an American, and she was killed in a car crash in 1929. And then the recession hit, depression hit, and my grandfather had to put my father and son and his brother, into an orphanage. And eventually they were sent back home to their mother's sister, who then took care of them. And they never went back, and they stayed here. Although my grandfather used to send tickets for ships to go back to them, he then remarried, and we only met him once, and that was in 1959. That's my grandfather. My grandmother was killed, and that's my father. And that's the 2 of them with my great-grandmother when they actually came back to Port Glasgow. And that's an aerial photograph of Port Glasgow there, where I was brought up there. And that's the toilet there, as you can see across an open balcony. It's a long way, and that's where they actually stayed as well. So I've told that story. It's on the website as well, with more photographs. That's an aunt I've never met, because when he married again, that's his second wife, and I met them in 1959, and that's one of their daughters. And that's a letter from her to my uncle to say that his father had died. You can actually look at it. And, oops, I think that was it. But the circle is complete in the sense that My middle son now lives in Houston, Texas with his wife and my grandson, and it's actually wrong because it says they have a son. Well, last week they had another son, so they have 2 sons now, and I'm going to see them next week. So I've told that story, and all of the stories, the people who have written the stories are all in here just now, and there are lots of them.
And I researched my family tree as part of the Identity project, which was really interesting. It was something I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't know how to go about it. But going along to the group at John Wood Street was really helpful. Up to the Metro Library and did some research out there and found out different things about members of the family, which surprised me, going back to my grandparents and great-grandparents. So I was able to put together a wee story for the book that we have just launched, and this film and the website as well. But the whole group worked together really well, and we all found out different things about other people's family, which gave us a few laughs at some points. But all in all, it's all been a great experience in the Identity project, and I hope we've managed to keep the website going for a while to come. That's the plan.